Kia ora, and welcome to another How To Plus Q&A event. My name is Anamari and I am your host. Today we have Lewis Anderson here from Dazzly Website Builder, and we are going to be talking about some really cool things that I think are really applicable to our users here at Digital Boost, and that's how to successfully cold call in New Zealand. So we will be touching on digital tools, but we'll be talking about processes on how to do that well and effectively. And Lewis is an expert not only in this area but many areas, and he's just seen that a lot of folks struggle with this, and so he'd really like to help you out with some great tips and tricks. Now, if you'd like to ask Lewis a question, make sure you use the comment section, Q&A section, or the chat function in order to get your questions answered by this expert. Thank you so much, Lewis, for joining us here today. I'm really happy and I'm glad we got you online. That was
Hey, thanks, Anna. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. And as you just thanks again, and really thankful for Digital Boost for this great initiative. And yeah, really happy to give this talk. I think you're quite spot on that a lot of businesses do struggle with this. And while a lot of the talk will be on the actual cold calling itself, the fundamentals, there is a pretty big section dedicated to how digital tools can help make it easier as well. So yeah, really excited to get into it. And yeah.
Let me let you drive. I will drop off, but make sure that your share screen is working.
Sure, I will just share that now. Does that look okay?
Perfect.
Great, okay. So yeah, thanks for joining us today. The topic of the talk is how to successfully cold call in New Zealand. My name is Lewis Anderson. I am the co-founder of Dazzly Website Builder. So why should you, excuse me, why should you listen to me? Got 9+ years in the business of custom website, mobile app, and software development, all sides of businesses and just about all industries. Spent a lot of time on site, forming a genuine understanding of my clients' businesses. A bit of background, we've had strong growth until 2020. We're actually growing even stronger now. So we have Dazzly Website Builder. We're able to help hundreds of businesses all across New Zealand with getting websites. So to jump into the structure of the talk a little bit, first we're going to define the talk a little bit better and talk about where cold calling sits in the scheme of sales processes. Next, we're going to just touch lightly on some common myths and some stigmas around sales. We're going to talk briefly about how it helped my business, particularly in the early years, and more importantly, we're going to talk about how it can help yours. We'll talk about how we actually do it. So we'll go through each major step, and that will really be the meat of the talk. And then following that, we'll talk about digital tools that you can use to scale your efforts once you've got the fundamentals down. We'll jump into an FAQ. I've got a lot of frequently asked questions that I've had over the years on this topic. And then, of course, I'd be delighted if you have any questions for the Q&A. So as per usual, please do supplement this talk by referring to the other talks that are in Digital Boost. There are so many good talks here by other private providers and some internally from the Digital Boost team as well. So I'd really encourage you to check out those talks. In particular for this talk, a previous talk that I did on how to write and talk about your business will be very good supplementary material for some of the earlier parts that are just lightly touched on. So what does it actually mean to successfully cold call in New Zealand? In my mind, what it means is that you're confident that you can sit down at your desk, perhaps with a phone and just a pen and paper, and generate appointments for your business that will result in thousands of dollars worth of contracts on the average day. Not every day, but on the average day, because that will be the threshold for your business surviving in its first years, if this is your primary marketing channel. So let's just have a look at a very professionally drawn diagram. We start from the definition section, call, the appointment, closing the contract, and then of course what happens after the contract's closed. So just to actually define this talk, what you would see between defining the customer and the call, we'd call preparation. We will touch on this very lightly, but the best reference for this is the prior talk. Another section we would highlight in orange, you would call this the sales presentation section. So this is after you've gotten the appointment. Perhaps you're doing it in person, perhaps these days more so on Zoom. This talk will not touch on this so much, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions on this if you are interested. And naturally for between closing the contract and the post-sale and account management, this talk will not be touching on that. What we will be focusing on, however, is the section between the call and the appointment, which is, of course, the cold call, and something that people often struggle with. So first of all, we're just going to lightly touch on some myths. So there is a prevalent belief held by many people in New Zealand that cold calling simply doesn't work. Lots of people hold this belief, everyday people, small business owners, salespeople, and even marketing professionals. In my own experience, I've used cold calling successfully, particularly in the early years of my business. So it genuinely surprised me when I got it there and started talking to people that other people are surprised that this works. You may be listening to this talk today because you're also skeptical, and if that's the case, that's great. I thank you for coming along and having an open mind, and obviously look forward to any questions. But I'm here to tell you that the myth is often around the cold calling part, is that people don't believe that you can call others out of the blue with no prior knowledge of yourself, your brand, or your business, and do business with them. And I'm here to tell you that you can do it. I've done it successfully for my small business, and you absolutely can too. Now, let's discuss some of the reasons around the stigma. It comes from the fact that really in America, people are successfully cold calling every day. It's a very common part of the sales culture there. So you have various roles in which their entire process is structured around cold calling and lead generation. Second, I think that the general stigma associated with salespeople is what leads into believing that the cold calling may not be a good way of doing business. And I think that it's just simply not true. If you think about it, every day, people procure services and buy products, and every time they're doing that, in some way or another, they're interacting with salespeople. In a lot of ways, salespeople make the world go round. It's just often not immediately visible to people. I think that at the end of the day, people do business over the phone already, so why not with you? It's not like you're making them sign a contract on the first call. It's just an introduction. And I think that you really have to, there is no substitute for experience in this. You have to get out and do it and prove to yourself that this can be done successfully. So how did cold calling affect my business, particularly in the first years? So we used it successfully to generate business to keep us alive and afloat in the first year of business. In later years, we'd use it to fill an entire month's production capacity and for many months in those years. So it helped us grow the business. We used it to prove that we could stand on our own 4 feet, myself and my business partner, entirely independently, and support ourselves through cold calling and obviously backing up our sales with really good service. It's a process that's improved over time. There's no mastering, at least my belief is that there's no mastering any particular aspect of sales, because like all complex things in life, we're always students and never masters. But I do firmly believe that cold calling is a cost-efficient, time-efficient, direct, straightforward, effective way to acquire customers in your first year of business. So in the beginning, in our case, we didn't really have a choice in the matter. We had expenses and overheads that were larger than our immediate resources. So every weekend we would research 150 different companies. We would make sure that they were the sort of businesses that our product and service were appropriate for. And then we'd spend, for the most part, from Monday to Friday, calling those businesses, finding out more about them, and ultimately trying to get appointments. And we did that, and it ensured the lights were on and the business was kept afloat. But most importantly, how can you use cold calling in your business? We're going to make a couple of assumptions, or more so just the brush of the talk, is that we will focus more on business to business, but it doesn't have to be B2B. I'm going to assume from these things that you're more service-based, but I would challenge you to think about it. If you are a product-based business, perhaps the reason that the customer is actually purchasing is because of yourself and the reliability and sort of natural service that comes around that product. I'm going to assume you're in your first year of business, and also assume that you don't have a very large marketing budget, and therefore the sales channel may make a lot of sense. So something we have to do on the prep side of things before we can actually make a cold call is prepare to do so. So again, the previous talk is a much better material on this, but just to touch on it lightly, it is very important to define your product, your service, and your benefits. So obviously a good way of doing that is to define your target customer. So just to touch on it lightly, when you think about features versus benefits, a feature would be that something is fast, but when explaining it to your customer, it might pay to talk about it in their terms and For example, explaining to a baker that they'll be able to bake 3 times more pies per hour means a lot more than it's fast. Same sort of situation, being able to tell a baker that they'll be able to make 1,000 more pies with minimal wastage means a lot more than a quality product. Remember who you're speaking to and what they value. And you define your target customer. So you need to know how to get to know the customer. So if you don't currently know your customer well, for example, if you're selling to electricians, you really better know more about electricians. You need to know when they get up, when they start working, when they take a lunch break, when they get home, when they do paperwork, generally speaking. You need to genuinely understand your customer, because if you don't, you're starting out on a back foot. So how can you learn more about your customer? For example, electricians. You can call one and respectfully ask for their time to ask questions about their business. If you're taking a genuine interest in doing it in a delightful and a respectful way, generally speaking, they'll be happy to answer your questions. Some of the best questions include, what are some of the biggest problems in your business right now? Or what sort of jobs have you been doing recently? These questions will enable you to learn a lot about their business fast, and they can help you in future conversations with similar customers as well. If you need a crash course in a real hurry, offer to shadow them for a day, but obviously are subject to COVID restrictions. But in my experience, you can learn a lot very fast by doing that. So again, we could delve a bit deeper on this, but I think the supplementary material in the previous talk will address this in more depth. Now, so developing a script that makes more sense, All cold calling scripts, it's my belief that they must be respectful and polite. You need to have a quality service that solves a problem. And we know that everyone values a reliable problem solver or a great product. So the truth is that you will be interrupting their day and they won't be expecting the call. So you might, this is the cold part of the nature of the call, is that you haven't previously interacted with them. So why you might be concerned that you might be met with furious anger, the truth is that you'll find very often business owners are happy to speak to you as long as you go about it the right way. So what are the possible outcomes of a cold call? It's really important that you define this. You need to know what your objective is from the call. In respect to the small business that we started, there were 3 possible outcomes. We get an appointment for a sale at a set date and time, usually at their business, to form a genuine understanding. We get a specific follow-up day or time to call them back to book in the appointment. Now, this is okay because naturally you may have caught them at a genuinely inconvenient time. And also you'll learn something by learning about when is a convenient time for them. And third, you'll get told no, that they're not interested or not in the market. And that's totally fine as well. It's just naturally that not all businesses are looking to purchase your services at this time. So really, you need to tailor a script that will effectively get them to point 1 or point 2. Or when you follow up with them, get them to point 1. In our case, as I've shown in the script before, one of our target customer groups were engineering firms. And of course, we were selling professional website services. So we used the following script, which we tailored from much trial and error to get really good results. And I'll read you through the script and we can talk a little bit more about that. So I'll just read it off the top. So, hi, my name is Lewis. Have I caught you at a good moment? It immediately shows respect for their time and that you realize that you are interrupting them. I can see you've been in business for over 26 years. Now, I know this, of course, because I've previously researched them before making the call. I've been looking over your website, and while I like the fact that you've got a lot of variety in your engineering products and a lot of photos, I really feel that overall the website doesn't represent the business. And then allow a short pause. The client will be surprised because they're probably not used to being challenged so early in a call, but again, doing it in a respectful way. And most of the time, they'll allow you to continue. Currently, the photos are difficult and the website doesn't work on mobile devices. You can see here we're pointing out the pain points that they would want to have addressed. The fact that it doesn't represent their business being the first and foremost. I started my own business 4 years ago. We help Auckland businesses with their websites. We correctly represent businesses with a strong visual appeal and build a long-term marketing asset as your website business partner. If there is a convenient time for you this week, would I be able to visit your office and learn more about your engineering operations? Right away, we're going to attempt to close the appointment. More often than not, we will not be able to close the appointment at this stage, although it may surprise you how often this is in fact successful. However, following this, it's very important that you set a follow-up date and time with them. For example, if they're in construction, it may be that 7:30 a.m. is the most important time to call back and book an appointment, or maybe the most important time for the appointment itself. The thing is that you will learn from this, and you will learn when it's convenient to book in the next step from them. And I guess the truth is that if you do set a follow-up date and time for a call, you need to stick to it. If you don't call them back at 4 p.m. the following Tuesday, then that is misrepresenting your brand, because you need to do what you say you're going to do. But especially when, always, but the emphasis more so, especially when you're forming a relationship. All of this must be done the right way. Tone is absolutely essential. And the truth is that once again, there is no substitute for experience. You can only go out there and do this over and over again and refine it in order to get success. It is highly unlikely that you'll be successful in the first instance. Naturally, you face a lot of rejection doing this, but it is a very successful way to be able to generate business. So how do we actually generate the leads to know how to call people? So there are a couple of different ways to do that. A more astute approach, perhaps of those with some more budget, would be to start asking questions such as, if we're selling to builders, we need to find the details for building companies, or if we're selling to freight brokers, we need to find the details for freight broking companies. So at a larger level, you can think about where those people gather, what industry groups they are, and potentially try to associate yourself with those. But in your first year in business, you're going to need a very straightforward approach. So my suggestion is that you use the power of the internet, that you go online, you gather information about your customers, and you note it down manually. When you do find their website and contact information, you can note down the main office number, but ideally you want to be calling the decision maker, which will be typically the small business owner, and hopefully their direct contact details are available. If you do have to go through the main line, you'll probably face a receptionist, or otherwise known as a gatekeeper, but that's absolutely fine. In New Zealand, as long as you're polite and respectful, you should be able to get through to the business owner if it is a convenient time for them. The alternative to this, of course, is that you can call a company such as Locally Vader Advantage, and they can sell you lead lists at a very reasonable price. So now it's time to test the script. So up until this point, it's probably been quite comfortable. We're just defining the customers, doing some marketing preparation, but now it's time that we actually have to make a call, and that's not always easy. So don't panic. It's okay. Up until this point, it's been pretty chill, pretty comfortable, but now it is time to test the script. So it's okay to feel uncomfortable now. The truth is you're worried they'll be mad. You're worried that perhaps you're not even a fully legitimate business or book of customers yet, and you're just starting out. All of these concerns are natural, but at the end of the day, it's really important to remember a few things. Number one, if you approach people politely and respectfully, you can expect the same response in turn. In my experience, very rarely do people get angry at me, and they're not sort of people that would want to be doing business with anyway. And number two, the business owners want to find new good products and services. Number three is that business owners want to find reliable people that will deliver those products and services. So you are giving them something that they are looking for, even if they don't immediately know it. You really will have to try hard to feel comfortable at first, unless you are a natural born salesperson. I was not. And on many days, even after getting many sales and many contract closed, you will still feel this discomfort. It's normal. And sometimes, you know, it's a thing with sales. There's a big element of what works best for you. I can speak from my own experience, but I think at the end of the day is that you need to find a script and a method and an approach that will work for you. And everyone's very different in that. And there's a little story on that later too. When it actually comes to making the call, people are a little bit more prepared for this these days, as they're getting more familiar with doing Zoom calls, which has some of the same parameters, but just some simple things. Lock the door, use noise cancelling headphones, silence your devices, remove any distractions, tie the dog up outside, the coffee warm, but not so warm and so ready to fall into your lap. You want your headphone cord not ready to impede yourself. Cordless is better, but make sure you've got batteries on charge. And I guess just be calm and dial the number. Objections. So I think it's just before we jump into objections, actually, I think it's to remember is that this is a way that you can quickly get ahead and effectively get ahead on a very low budget from your business. You really should do this 100 times. If you do this 100 times, you'll learn a lot about cold calling, you'll learn a lot about your customers, their business, and hopefully you'll learn a lot about yourself too. Be brave. And what's the worst that can happen? And you are actually trying to help them, so it's okay. I think it's really important to sort of reiterate these things to yourself if you are uncomfortable before you start cold calling for the day. So objections, it's obviously a very important part of any sales and one of the main reasons why people are hesitant to cold call. So objections, I would say, yeah, along with general nervousness is probably the biggest aversion to cold calling. So let's talk about them. What are objections? Here's an example of an objection. That's too expensive. Or I don't need that. I don't care. That's irrelevant to my business. Or I need to use the local provider. These are reasons why the customers' concerns, genuine concerns that the customers are raising that need to be alleviated or overcome or handled in the right way in order to build their trust, demonstrate integrity, and get the contract and the relationship off to a good start and a good basis. So if you will face objections, it's absolutely paramount that you catalog every objection that you face. You understand what your response is to it, because I can assure you, if within the first couple of calls you will face these same objections into thousands of calls. If something is too expensive, how could it be that the same thing is delivered for cheaper? Check what the alternative is that they're considering. Is it really the same thing? Does it really deliver the same benefits? And does it come with the reliability and backing that you bring to the business? If someone doesn't need something for their business, or if they say, oh, that's irrelevant. The truth is that it could be irrelevant and you've misdefined the customer. But what's probably more likely the case is that the business just believes that this isn't relevant. And a small story in this part was a number of years ago, we called a local mechanic business here in Auckland. And the first thing we got called car mechanic, and the first thing they said is, oh, we don't need a website. And I said to them, you're actually right. I said, the truth is that you've been in business 20 years and you've been running your business successfully. You have a great reputation. Fundamentally, you don't need a website. It's all working. But if that is the case, then why is it that ABC, D, and other mechanic, ABC, DEF, GHI mechanic, and other mechanics around are also purchasing our services and continue to purchase our services and get a lot of good value from those services? And this will intrigue them because, of course, fundamentally, they will know these local competitors and they will also know that they're a similar business. So in this instance, we convinced them that we should come in at 8 o'clock the next morning, show what we've done for other local competitors. And of course, in that instance, they actually signed the contract that morning. That customer went on to pass that business down to the next generation in their family. We've had many referrals from them, and we did them a much larger website upgrade down the track. So it goes to show that when people believe, what they believe in the first instance doesn't always reflect the reality. And if you address them on a level that they understand and answer their questions in a genuine way with integrity, then you will win their business. And it goes to show that, down the track, they did that big website upgrade, which shows that really it was very valuable to them and something we continue to do business to this day. How do you end the call? Once you have the appointment, don't be so quick to just jump off the call. If they're not hanging up or feeling like they need to go, then it pays to ask 1 or 2 extra questions to see if you can get some extra value or knowledge out of the call. And think of good value questions that'll give you more information for your sales presentation. The post-call email. So this is again getting towards the more digital tools side of it. I feel if you're using the sort of more basic or less advanced tools per se, that the most straightforward way upon completing a successful cold call is to have an Outlook template already made that you can simply put the client's details in as well as the basic details of the meeting, show your phone number, all the details written very clearly, because this will show you professionalism and back up the first impression of your brand. And also it gets the meaning across to them right away. The follow-up. Just a small point on this is really just that if you are following up a call, be sure to do it when you said you would. As I've said before, it's about following up what you say you're going to do and building that initial first impression. And I guess remember, it's a journey. This is a process that, as I said, I don't believe you can ever master. It also involves the sales presentation, closing the contract, and the account management following that. And I think, you know, while those are beyond the scope of the talk, it'll be that going on to do those successfully following cold calling will really motivate you to go back to the start, generate leads again, make the calls again. When you prove it to yourself that you can generate business this way, you'll be motivated to do it more. Not every day, and that's okay, but just on your average day, if you can do well doing this, then it's such an asset to your business and yourself and your personal life too. And it is a very personal thing. So just again, I mentioned before a small story. Good number of years ago, I visited a very small call center in Manukau. They're actually calling residential customers in this case. I saw 3 people in the sales room, and they were calling residential people at dinner time, so it's a pretty tough sell. There was an Irish person, a South African lady, and a Kiwi salesperson, and they were all so different. One was very pushy. Another one was very educational. They were educating the customer on a cold call, and the other was very polite and almost sung to them as they were selling them the benefits over the phone. And I looked at the board. In this case, they were using a whiteboard, so somewhat akin to pen and paper. And I asked, who's actually your top performing salesperson? And the truth is that they all perform at the top level. They all consistently perform at a level that they have set, because these people have worked in this role for a number of years, and they have really tailored their script and approach down to be able to successfully cold call. So I'll jump to the next. So again, just reviewing the overall process here. And I think that sales is a very unique thing. I was no natural born salesperson, and I'm assuming that most people aren't either. But I think that for me, trust-based consulting and selling and being genuine and conducting yourself with integrity is a real cornerstone of everything in this talk. So let's just jump through to some of the more primitive technologies. When you first start, you can go as simple as pen and paper for your lead, for storing your customer lead information, and for storing the notes from your cold calls. That can work, and I've done it. I think that these days it would really pay to start at the next level, which is a basic level of digital tool introduction. Obviously, there's the Microsoft Office suite, which is a great package for small businesses. Your mobile phone, of course, your laptop or PC. So you'll be familiar with Microsoft Excel, I hope. It is excellent for organizing leads. You can go as simple as just creating a few columns and starting to enter the information you gather: company name, the name of the contact, their website, the main contact phone number, perhaps the mobile phone number if you have it, and then simply a big tab for comments and notes, which you can fill in from the cold calls you make. At the end of the day, you're not going to be cold calling these places 10 or 20 times. That wouldn't be an efficient use of your time or theirs. So I think that you'll find that despite the fact it's quite rudimentary and it's just a row in a column, that Excel can be extremely effective in the first instance for this task. Again, another, I don't want to call it basic, but another tool is, of course, Microsoft Outlook. It's perfect for the templates for post-cold call appointment setting. And again, our templates are excellent because they keep the consistency of your brand right there. They reduce errors and they save you a ton of time. I highly recommend that if you are going to cold call for your small business or give this a go, which I really hope you do, that you spend some time at this more, again, perhaps not aptly named, basic level of digital tool. And the reason for that is because the manual effort that you'll have to put in at this point in doing all these things, as opposed to the automated tools that we'll discuss in a moment, it's really important because it's going to help you define the vision for your business processes. So how you as the entrepreneur or small business owner would like your information to be processed. and that will naturally be as advantageously as possible for your business, but only you can know that. So it's quite important that you do this manual processing or more manual processing for some time, because when you do want to, when you have got a firm foundation on cold calling, generating business, getting the contracts and all the rest, then when you do want to scale it up, you will know when you go to use those tools, your process already, and you can make those tools work for your processes as opposed to having to adjust your processes for those tools as much as possible anyway. So let's jump to the next one. So some more advanced tools. So first of all, just a disclaimer, I've got an assortment of some Kiwi and non-Kiwi providers here. I do use some of these in my businesses. I'm not going to speak to any particular provider. I just bought these up from a fairly quick online search. Most or all of these tools will offer a free trial, and I'm more than happy to have more Kiwi customers using their systems. But I think there's something realistic to sort of remember here as well, is that you've got two types of systems here. You've got your voice over IP, so you've got some providers there, and then you've got your CRMs, which are your customer relationship management software. The voice over IP assists with the telephone stuff. It can also help with automated dialing if you want to go that far. And then the CRM is, of course, for storing customer information, storing cold call information, and even sales appointment and contract information as well. So using these systems is, try them all and see what works best for your processes. It's a practical point, because if you think about it, if you were to realistically call 150 businesses a week, you might have quality interactions with, in the ballpark, 100 of them. And then from those, there may be some very reasonable percentage, let's say 70%, will require some sort of follow-up. So at the end of the day, you're dealing with tens of customers per week, potentially, that could require a follow-up. You do that for a month or 2 months, and you're going to have quite a bit of data on your hands. The important point is that when you have done these manual points and you go to an advanced tool, you will need to, because you will need to get more organized, and these tools will automate a lot of this organization and just the management of the customers and the leads generally. So once you are established, and you may even have a little bit more budget than perhaps, even though these are very affordable solutions, you can go out and make a little bit more investment in your sales processes. So just another wee point here is that if you are going to go out, and the previous talk speaks to this as well, but if you are going to go out and do some cold calling, it pays to have another quality touch point. So of course, most businesses in their first year probably won't have a budget for a full-blown website, but if you are going to make those representations, it does help if after the call they can look at your name and do a bit of research. And to get a quality website online really easily, you can use Dazzly to do that. So it's very easy for anyone in New Zealand. You can sign up, like most of the other tools here. You can get a completely free trial, and you can build yourself either a very basic, just for the moment, online presence, or quite a comprehensive, really nice looking website to represent you correctly in your first year of business. So it's just some examples here quickly. It will just help when they look you up to have something there that represents your business and some of your work too, ideally. So reiterating the main points, it's okay to be comfortable when cold calling. In fact, it's quite normal. Also, there is no substitute for experience. It will get easier over time. And when you start getting some of those initial wins, hopefully it'll motivate you towards more wins. Sales is a very personal thing. You do it in your own way. You find the way that works best for you, and you can only find that through experience. And the final point is that once you have got the fundamentals established and you want to scale up your efforts, particularly if you are one day planning on bringing on more staff members, you're going to need these digital tools at a basic level, and then perhaps at a more advanced level regardless. And I think that there are just so many advantages to this, and also advantages just to take what's on offer, even more so than just the digital tools here, is really log in to Digital Boast. Look at all the other tools as well. There are quality providers that have spoken to some of these specific systems, to CRM systems generally, to voice over IP generally. So if you want to go into more depth on either of them, there's quality content there. And I think at the end of the day, just be brave and have the confidence to give it a go. It is intimidating, but I can assure you from my experience and the experience of my clients and others that this can be very successful and very cost-effective way keeping your business afloat and then subsequently scaling your business into your future years. Some recommended reading. Again, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's an absolute classic. Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. It's quite good in terms of some of the cold call script stuff and probably slightly more applicable to the sales presentation, which isn't touched on too much. And of course, Brian Tracy, anything by him, perhaps not this particular book, but anything by him is good for the whole process. Some frequently asked questions. So one will be quite a common one I used to get more so than today is what phone plan to use. I'm not going to advocate any particular phone provider, but what I will say is that if you are not going directly into the advanced tools, then the phone plan you should use would be one with unlimited calling and ideally a bit of data too for when you're actually out there on the road. Another frequently asked question is people are saying generally, I can't do this. I can assure you can do this. I was not a natural born salesperson and I'm sure you can develop yourself personally as well and get this done. Another common question is, when is the best time to call people? So of course, that's industry specific. And as you start to do business with a specific industry, you will learn more about them and you will learn about when are the best times to call. For example, the electricians, if they're residential electricians, for example, 7:15 a.m. can be a great time to call them. You just got to go about doing it the right way. But generally speaking, I would avoid calling businesses on Monday before 11. But besides that, any other day from 8 a.m. onwards, just go for it. What you've got is valuable and it's okay to take up a little bit of their time to talk to them about that. In the summer, on the weekends, it really depends on the business, but it's much better for calling residential customers. And the summer holidays in January, people think there's nothing to be earned there. That is completely wrong. Manufacturers operate all year round and can be available for sales appointments. When's the best time to set an appointment? Obviously, again, industry specific, but generally speaking, it's 8 a.m. on the soonest day possible. Because, of course, if they're meeting you in person at 8 a.m., then it's understandable that this appointment is of importance to them, and that's what you want because your time is valuable too. How do I motivate myself to cold call? Well, at first, you're going to have to push yourself, but once you make some progress, naturally, you're going to face a lot of rejection. But hopefully you'll get some good calls too. And once you see it start to work and get some contracts closed, that should motivate you to go back to the start of the process and continue calling again. So I really encourage you just to go out there and get those wins and use those wins as motivation to call more. Again, you use the advanced digital tools. When you get those wins, it's a little bit unsales related, but when you get those wins in the early years of your business, form those really good relationships with the customers and with their permission, of course, you use them as examples, use them as social proof to help propel your business and your reputation. You're standing forward. And I'll just sort of end on one small story, and it's that it's not that it's to be representative of everyone's situation, but I think that it's an interesting one to share. When we first started the business, we, obviously, as I said, I wasn't so experienced in cold calling, and we actually didn't know how it was going to go. That I really persisted very hard. And while we did get some good initial clients in the first few weeks, it was only about 5 or 6 weeks into going full time on the business when, and obviously having made some progress with the many initial calls I made in those weeks, I made a call at about 4:30 one afternoon, again very early on, to it was an electrical company on the shore, and I spoke to the electrician's wife, and to my surprise, she actually said that they were currently considering about changing the website and were ready to make a decision on it. So this took me back a little bit, and I thought, oh wow, okay. So I went around there the very next morning and had a very long discussion, quite long in fact. And fortunately, we did sign the contract and got the deal. That was very good because, when you're 5 or 6 weeks into your first business full time and you're not really making profit yet, it can obviously be really hard. And I know some of you are probably experiencing this now, but that deal that we got, although it was only the contract, we hadn't yet earned the money, but of course we were confident we could complete the contract. That deal that was earned in about 12 hours time, about half a day, was worth more than I would have made in an entire month in my previous job. And I just think that things like that were really what helped spur us along in the first instance, and that you do have to be really brave about this, especially if you don't have the financial backing. But I also think that it's really, really, really smart to give this a good chunk of your time and a good try, because if it can work for us, it can certainly work for you too. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative, and I just really look forward to any questions you may have. Hopefully you're comfortable asking them live. If not, you're most welcome to email me, and I'm happy to give you a call back and answer questions specific to your situation.
Oh, this has been another fabulous chat by you, Lewis. What I really loved was it was so well-rounded. You even give recommended books to read. I love that. So a lot of us do like to do that in our spare time. And I think it's really important to just take information in different forms and put it into your mind. You absorb it very differently on video content versus audio versus, actual reading. And, as I was growing up, I was always told, like you said, like sales can be considered a really dirty word. It's been kind of branded as this dirty word, but in actuality, if you really remember that the intention behind what you're doing, like you said, is earnest and it's coming from a place of assistance, you're not selling them, you're helping them get access to things that they actually need and or maybe want, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I really loved this chat. Now, you mentioned Microsoft tools, and because of that, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a heads up. And now I've lost my list, of course, I got all caught up. We're going to be running a whole bunch of sessions. We actually started them already with here it is, Andrea Jensen. So she's from ACE Training, and she does a lot of talks on Microsoft, and she gets very passionate about them. And
Very
because
good.
you talked about Outlook, I just thought I might mention that on the 25th of March, we have a session booked with her on Outlook, if you need to learn how to use that a little bit better. So the talks coming up are the 25th of February. We'll talk about OneNote, which is one of those places you could jot down notes.
Such
like
a good
recommended.
tool. Such a good tool.
Yeah, and she already did a session on OneDrive. If you are interested in that, if you do have staff and people, or you want to be able to store stuff in the cloud. And then we've got that Outlook session in March. And I know that Excel can be daunting for some folks, but last year we actually did an Excel session with Andrea, and it was fabulous. She gets passionate about the formulas. It's quite funny. But I think when you use Excel, if you know formula shortcuts, you do get excited about it, don't you? So,
Yeah, that's correct. And
yeah.
I did have a little example of something
Yeah,
I did
fantastic.
earlier, and that it's just I wasn't sure whether I showed this or not, but just to sort of show the simple ones. You're right, Excel can be intimidating, and there are a lot of like advanced features baked in there, but for the purposes of this, and especially if you're still at the basic level, something as simple as a table where you just list the information and you can put your notes in here can be really quite sufficient in the first instance. And I think what you said about the books and the reading material is so true as well. I think that I definitely wouldn't have the skills I have today if it weren't, for the authors of the past that have taken their time to put their knowledge into those books. So yeah, I just think I really encourage you to use those to supplement what you learn on Digital Boost.
And I think that a lot of times we don't realize how much we're selling all day long. Like, come on, let's do this. I know that you said that you're not a natural salesperson. And I guess, I totally agree. It's some people just sell. And that's just, they feel really comfortable in that zone. But what I loved is that you talked about practice, and that is super important when you're doing anything as a skill. This is all just skills. You can learn how to do it and make it your own. I didn't used to host this many webinars, but now I do. So, like you can learn how to do anything.
And you did, in a relatively short time, you've done so many. So
yeah,
it's very testament to that idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a learning curve, the more you do, the better you'll get at it. And we're here to support you as well. I know that Lewis always extends himself out and has chats with folks, and you can call him and he'll actually have a chat with you about your business. We will also assist you with things. So if you needed help, maybe writing a script or something, although you could look at the session that we did with Lewis before, because you did talk about that and how to devise what to put in that script. we're here to help in any way that we can. We will be doing a session on some phone systems. I'm lining it up currently. It's basically a cloud system that will connect your landline to your mobile phone, so that if you have a landline for your business, but you need to be out on site or you need to go place, it'll direct right through, so you never miss a call and you can take them on the go. And we'll be talking about systems like that in the future. If that's something that you really need for your business, I thought it might be of really great use, and it was brought to my attention by a kind gentleman like yourself, Lewis. Now I see that we don't have any questions popping up, and that's probably because you are so thorough.
Everyone's more than welcome to reach out after the talk, but I think another point that sort of you've just touched on as well is that, for example, we use a system such as that, where if they call the landline and it's not answered by any of the staff, then it'll systematically come through to our mobile phones. But I think what's really important to realize is that if you do successfully do this and attempt to scale it, using those advanced tools as well, is that just from a practical point of view, just think about it. If you've booked in, say, you've done a particularly good week and you've got 9 to 12 appointments or something that you have to attend that week for new business, you're going to be doing some of your follow-ups from the car. It's going to be summer, it's going to be hot, and you're going to have to make those calls from your vehicle on the road. So again, having systems like that, where if the customer happens to follow up before your call, that they will be able to get you even if you're on the road, because you will be, if you're going and doing these presentations. It's essential. It's essential.
Yeah. And one other aspect of having a system similar to when you talk about scaling there, and you talk about, business on the go and things like that, a lot of small businesses kind of don't set up their systems to begin with, and it just kind of grows organically, and that's really cool, and that can work for a lot of folks. However, I would recommend, having sat through so many of these chats, putting data privacy things in place. And like Microsoft kind of offers with their package, you've got that security with your data, which is quite nice. That can be really important in your setup. So having a little bit of a thought, hey, what kind of systems do I need to be organized? And am I actually able to comply with the laws? Because they are changing and they are becoming more in depth. It is really important to make sure that you have those things in place. So just keep that in mind as you're building your tech stack.
Yeah, and this is quite relevant to cold calling as well. I mean, there's a number of laws and sort of things regarding this. I'd say, generally speaking, as a good reference, the Marketing Association has a lot of documentation on that. If for your situation you have any particular concerns about perhaps around the times you might be calling, Marketing Association has some great guidance on that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. We want to make
sure. That's all right. You brought it up in respect of the other thing. So yeah, I hadn't included it either, but it's an extremely important point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's going to be us for today. People have been hanging on throughout the whole session on the social media platforms. I can see them there, but a lot of times, they just want to hear what you have to say, and that's great, because you are the expert.
I hope it's helpful, and I'll do my best to get some slides and resources up, so to supplement the talk. But yeah, thanks again. Thanks a lot for Digital Boost. It's a real pleasure. Really happy to do it.
Always looking forward to having you on. I think we have some more sessions booked already. I'm not sure when our next.
Yeah, we do have 1 or 2 coming up. Yep.
Should have a look at that for us all. So one of the beautiful things is that Lewis always is very willing to give his time to us here. We're going to be doing our next session on the 15th of March on websites for rural service businesses.
Correct.
So if that is you, tune in on that date, because a lot of folks are rural businesses here in New Zealand. So there'll be some great tips and tricks in that.
It'll be a real treat for people that are in that particular scenario, whether you're, no matter what service you do, cleaner, plumber, builder, anything that is conducted in person locally, and if you're based rurally, this tool will be of good value.
Oh, thanks so much, Lou. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
No, I'm really looking forward to that one too. Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yeah,
thanks again, Lewis. Ka kite, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.